Hi everyone. In this video we're going to talk a little bit about motivation. We're going to cover the content theories of motivation, which is only one type of theories of motivation. So let's get right into it. Well, as we know, motivation is only one component of job performance. People have to be not only willing to perform, which is the motivational aspect, but they also have to have the capacity to perform and the opportunity to perform. Now, all of these factors are going to be interrelated, and each of them will impact job performance in different ways. There are two main types of motivation theories. The first type of motivation theory is the content theory, which focuses on the factors within the person that actually cause people to be motivated. Okay, what creates motivation for people? Then we have the process theories, which describe, explain, and analyze how motivation happens. So these theories are looking at how behavior is energized, directed, sustained, and stopped over time. So if you think about the content theories, they're going to focus on what triggers motivation, whereas process theories are going to focus on how the process of motivation unfolds. And here we have a little bit more of an explanation of both the content and the process theories, and we have some examples of each, and as well as some managerial implications. So we're not going to cover all of the content theories in this video. We are going to talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We're going to talk about Herzberg's, and we're going to talk about McClelland's motivation theory. All right, so I think everyone may have at one point in their lives during perhaps their undergraduate or even reading about it later, everyone must have heard about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So whenever you see sort of a pyramid, when we're talking about motivation, it usually refers to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So according to Maslow's, a need can be a motivator, meaning it triggers behavior only until it is satisfied. And there are 5 levels of motivation. The first level is physiological. So for example, receiving a sufficient salary to live on. The second level is safety and security, receiving regular salary increases, for example. So in the second level, we're looking at being able to fulfill or have stability in fulfilling your physiological needs. Then the third level, we go into belongingness, social, and love. Being accepted by people, working in groups that are cooperative, and having a supportive supervisor. Then we move up to the fourth level, which is esteem, which is winning a covered award, for example, for performance, receiving high-level promotion. Are you esteemed by your colleagues? Earning an outstanding reputation among peers? And finally, we go into self-actualization, which refers to being the best that you can be. So for example, starting a successful new business, developing and mentoring others, using business skills to start a charity that helps disabled veterans. According to Maslow's theory, each of these levels is going to motivate people only up until they're fulfilled. So once a person fulfills their physiological needs, then they're going to only be motivated by their safety and security needs. Once those are fulfilled, they're going to be motivated by their belonging needs. Once that's fulfilled, they'll be motivated by esteem. And once that's fulfilled, they're going to be motivated by self-actualization. So, just to summarize, a satisfied need ceases to motivate, as we mentioned just now. Unsatisfied needs can cause frustration, conflict, and stress, and people have a need to grow and develop. They strive to move up the hierarchy. These are the assumptions or the arguments within Maslow's theory. Now, there are a couple of issues with Maslow's theory. There have been limited studies that have provided support for the theory. Some of the studies that have tested this theory have found that only really 2 general levels of needs exist, which is the physiological need and then kind of the other needs bundled together. Despite these limitations, Maslow's hierarchy of needs is still sort of around because it's really straightforward, easy to understand. Everyone has needs, so it uses a concept that's pretty popular to explain how people are motivated. Then we move on to Herzberg's two-factor theory. And what's interesting about this theory is it looks at motivation by looking at two different factors. So Herzberg's argued that satisfaction and dissatisfaction are actually two separate things. Now hang in there with me for a little bit. So let's look first at dissatisfaction. So according to Herzberg's two-factor theory, dissatisfaction is influenced by what he called hygiene factors. And these are things like salary, job security, working conditions, status, company procedures, and interpersonal relationships. Now, these things cannot cause job satisfaction, but if they're not existing, they can cause dissatisfaction. Then we have the second factor that influences motivation, which are the intrinsic conditions, okay, so which are the motivating factors. Things like job content, what you actually do in your work, your achievement, recognition, the responsibilities you have, advancement, possibility for growth. According to Herzberg's theory, these things can satisfy, okay? If they're not present, they do not cause dissatisfaction, but if they are present at adequate levels, they can cause satisfaction. So what's very unusual about Herzberg's theory is whereas most other theories look at a continuum from dissatisfaction to satisfaction, meaning they're the same thing, they're just present at different levels, Herzberg's two-factor theory separates dissatisfaction from satisfaction, and he argues that each of those two is going to be influenced by different factors. There have been some criticisms of the theory over the years. Some people have argued that it really oversimplifies the nature of job satisfaction. Some people also argue that the theory really requires people to look at themselves retrospectively in order for it to explain motivation. Now, Herzberg's theory has important implications for job design and job enrichment. It basically makes the argument that people are going to be only truly motivated by the nature of the work that they do rather than extrinsic factors like pay and promotions and those types of things. So jobs need to be built in a way where people are able to receive achievement, where they're able to have autonomy, where they're challenged in order for them to be motivated. Now we come to the third theory of motivation, and this is McClelland's learned needs theory. So even though McClelland looked at needs, he considers needs to be sort of a different concept than what Maslow did in his theory. So according to McClelland, needs are learned, and as a result of the learning process that occurs from people's previous experiences, individuals can develop very unique configurations of needs that impact their behavior and their performance. McClelland focused on three types of learned needs as motivators. The first one is need for achievement. So people who like to take responsibility for solving problems, or who are able to set achievement goals and take risks to achieve those goals, and people who actually want feedback on their performance in order to improve. Then we have need for affiliation. These are the people who desire social interaction. They're really concerned about the quality of personal relationships, and for them, social relationships take precedence over task accomplishment. And finally, we come to the need for power. And these tend to be people who concentrate on obtaining and exercising power and authority, and they're very concerned with influencing other people and winning arguments. Now, power may have a positive or a negative connotation, depending on your perspective, but this tends to be pretty value-free, and power can usually be used both in positive and negative ways. The idea with McClelland's theory is that whenever a need is strong, there's motivation to use behavior that leads to the satisfaction of that need. And there have been some criticisms of this theory, and the first is that some of the idea that the need for achievement can be learned is pretty contrary to some of the literature that's out there that's arguing that motives are usually acquired through childhood, through our primary socialization, and are very difficult to change later in adulthood. And there's also very limited evidence that these acquired needs are permanently acquired by individuals, that people will have these tendencies over very long periods of time. So I'd like to show you the relationship between the three content theories of motivation that we talked about. So as you can see here in the middle, we're representing Maslow's hierarchy of needs as a pyramid, meaning you have to fulfill the lower needs before you can move up to the upper needs. So that serves as our basis. When we look at Herzberg's two-factor theory, which differentiates between intrinsic motivators and extrinsic motivators, we can see that things like like pay, promotions, tend to be much more related to safety and security and physiological needs, whereas the nature of the job itself and the kinds of relationships that you can get by doing your work are much more related to Maslow's upper needs, beginning with love and belonging up to self-esteem and self-actualization. And we can also see by looking over here at McClelland's theory, his power, achievement, and affiliation needs also tend to be much more related to the higher level needs that Maslow theory refers to. So this brings us to the end of part A of content theories of motivation. If you have any questions, please feel free to send any questions through Canvas. Also, please make sure to review your textbook for more details on these theories.